Welcome once again to another focus on African leadership. In this episode, we are looking at how military-styled self-proclaimed Democrat President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is destroying democracy in Nigeria. When President Bola Ahmed Tinubu assumed office in May 2023, there was cautious optimism about Nigeria's democratic trajectory. Here was a man who, for decades, positioned himself as a dogged pro-democracy activist, a supposed product of the June 12th struggle, and an outspoken critic of authoritarianism. Nigerians believed he would be a reformer, a bridge between old authoritarian tendencies and a vibrant, people-centered democracy. However, in just over a year, his administration has demonstrated glaring signs of autocracy, intolerance for dissent, and a penchant for brute force governance that eerily mirrors military rule. From repeated disregard for constitutional provisions to the coercion of political opponents and undermining of independent institutions, President Tinubu's government appears more concerned with consolidating power than deepening Nigeria's fragile democracy. What has emerged is a paradox. A president who rode on the wave of democratic promises but is now steadily dismantling the very institutions that uphold democracy. A president tone-deaf to democratic norms. At the core of any democracy lies the sovereignty of the people. It is a system designed to reflect the will of the majority, uphold the rule of law, and ensure checks and balances. Sadly, under Tinubu, there has been a consistent departure from these tenets. His presidency has exhibited a troubling level of nonchalance toward the democratic norms that should guide decision-making in a pluralistic society. One of the earliest signs was the unilateral removal of fuel subsidies on his first day in office, an economically impactful decision announced without consultation with labor unions, civil society, or even the National Assembly. While the subsidy regime was indeed unsustainable, its abrupt removal demonstrated a lack of sensitivity to public input or participation in governance, a hallmark of democracy. Instead of engaging citizens in dialogue, Tinubu's government imposed a decision that plunged millions into unprecedented economic hardship, further weakening public trust in democratic processes. The Tinubu administration has since maintained a pattern of imposing policies and appointments without adequate transparency or public scrutiny. Ministers with questionable records have been recycled into government, while critics of the administration face isolation or intimidation. Tinubu's my way or the highway style has created an environment where dissent is suppressed and alternative voices are silenced, gradually reducing democratic participation to mere symbolism. The Rivers State crisis. A full-blown constitutional meltdown. Perhaps the most damning evidence of Tinubu's disdain for democracy is the political theater unfolding in Rivers State, a state that has become ground zero for democratic collapse under federal watch. In an unprecedented move, Governor Siminalayi Fubara, who emerged as a product of intra-party dynamics and popular mandate, has faced unrelenting sabotage from elements loyal to his predecessor and current FCT minister, Nyesom Wike. The political tussle culminated in the mysterious and clearly unconstitutional declaration of a state of emergency, which was neither debated nor ratified by the National Assembly as required by Section 305 of the 1999 Constitution. Even more troubling is the federal government's alleged complicity. Fubara has been stripped of effective control of the state apparatus, with reports of Abuja-sponsored actors fueling instability to justify federal interference. A puppet legislative assembly was simultaneously erected and recognized by federal agencies, while the legitimate House of Assembly, composed of elected lawmakers, was suspended through legally baseless maneuvers. This amounts to the suspension of both the executive and legislative arms of government in Rivers State, effectively installing a parallel government that is answerable not to the people but to Tinubu's central command. It's a chilling echo of Nigeria's darkest authoritarian years, where democratic institutions were only convenient tools of political manipulation, political coercion, and the weaponization of state institutions. Another dangerous trend in Tinubu's administration is the weaponization of federal institutions to coerce opposition figures and governors into defecting to the All Progressives Congress, APC. Nigeria's democracy thrives on multi-party competition and ideological diversity. But under Tinubu, opposition spaces are shrinking rapidly. Governors, especially in the South and Middle Belt, have reported subtle threats, ranging from selective investigations by anti-corruption agencies like the EFCC and ICPC to withdrawal of federal support for state-level projects. Some have succumbed, not because of ideological alignment, but due to fear of political persecution. This political bullying erodes the democratic right of individuals to associate freely and disincentivizes opposition, thus creating a one-party dictatorship in disguise. What is emerging is a culture of coerced conformity. The message is clear: align with the ruling party or be starved of resources, denied infrastructure, and subjected to endless probes. The Nigeria police, DSS, and other security institutions have not remained neutral but often act as enforcers of political intimidation. This selective application of state power sends a dangerous signal. Democracy is permissible only when it favors the ruling elite. Compromising the judiciary, the last bastion falls. If democracy is a three-legged stool, comprising the executive, legislature, and judiciary, then the judiciary has been the last line of defense in Nigeria's democracy. But even that is being suffocated under Tinubu's watch. From the 2023 presidential election petitions to gubernatorial tribunal cases, public perception of the judiciary has never been this low. The apex court's ruling affirming Tinubu's election, despite glaring irregularities and unresolved issues around the Chicago State University certificate scandal, raised eyebrows nationally and globally. Many believe that the ruling did not serve justice but protected political incumbency. There are mounting allegations of backdoor dealings and pressure on judges to deliver expected outcomes. Justices who dissent are reportedly blacklisted or sidelined, while those who toe the administration's line are promoted. Such manipulation destroys public confidence in judicial impartiality and renders the courts an extension of executive power rather than an independent arm of government. The case of suspended opposition figures being detained indefinitely or granted selective bail conditions is another red flag. Courts are increasingly used not for justice, but for political warfare, often denying suspects fair hearing or due process. In a real democracy, the judiciary is a refuge. Under Tinubu, it is becoming a graveyard for justice. Clamp down on civil society and press freedom. Democracy cannot flourish where civil society and the press are under siege. Since Tinubu took office, media houses have been threatened with fines, journalists arrested or intimidated, and public protests forcefully dispersed. The administration views criticism as disloyalty and public outcry as sabotage. The cybercrime law has been weaponized against digital activists, bloggers, and citizen journalists who dare expose corruption or critique government policies. Many have been harassed by security agents for cyberstalking, a vague charge frequently used to muzzle free speech. This erosion of civil liberties is reminiscent of military decrees, where fear, not law, dictates public discourse. Conclusion: Nigeria's democracy at a crossroads. President Bola Tinubu may wear the garb of a Democrat, but his actions betray the very foundation of democratic governance. He governs like a general, not a president, issues directives like commands, not policies, and sees dissent as rebellion, not a right. His administration's legacy so far is one of rising authoritarianism cloaked in constitutional legality. From Rivers State's democratic meltdown to the silencing of civil voices, intimidation of opposition, and manipulation of the judiciary, Nigeria is witnessing a systematic rollback of democracy. The country now stands at a dangerous crossroads. If citizens, institutions, and the international community do not resist this creeping autocracy, Nigeria may slide irreversibly into tyranny under the mask of democracy. The warning signs are glaring, and history will not forgive those who stood silent. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe, like, and share for more updates on African leadership.